After overnight record-breaking sessions both in the Senate and the House, the One Big Beautiful Bill has been approved by both chambers of Congress. Republican lawmakers kept to their self-imposed deadline of delivering the bill to the president by Independence Day.
I think what those holdouts were doing was exactly what we were all doing. We are advocating for our districts, right? We live in a republic. We all advocate for our districts. So I think we all got together. We all wanted to get to a yes. And then last night, I think, what was it, 3 in the morning, after having several conversations with each other and the president, we've concluded that this is the best, most conservative bill that we can put on the floor to pass for the American people.
Overnight negotiations within the House Republican Conference, led by Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and facilitated by President Trump, unlocked the passage of the bill. President Trump agreed to use executive authority to rein in the green energy tax credits of the Inflation Reduction Act and implement the Medicaid work requirements as soon as 2026.
The president's very engaged. He was, very helpful in the process. He helped answer questions and articulate his vision and what this bill will mean for the country and his agenda. And I'm really appreciative of his leadership.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries broke the record for the use of the so-called magic minute on the House floor, speaking for over 8 hours and 44 minutes to delay voting on the bill.
I'm going to take my time and ensure that the American people fully understand how damaging this bill will be, and everybody should vote no against it.
It's important to note that Congressman Thomas Massie and Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick were the only 2 House Republicans to vote against passage of the bill. The bill is expected to be signed by President Trump on July 4th, right after the B-2 bombers fly over the National Mall. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
The bill was a major legislative win for President Trump. He secured it through numerous phone calls and meetings to get Republican lawmakers to unite. The so-called One Big Beautiful Bill is now set to become law on Independence Day, just as the president wanted. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more.
Celebrating like the biggest bill of its kind ever signed.
At 5 p.m. Eastern on the 4th of July, President Trump will sign into law his signature tax and immigration bill at a signing ceremony here at the White House. The passage of the Big Beautiful Bill marks a major legislative win for the president, who campaigned on the promises of cutting taxes and securing the border.
And it's going to make this country into a rocket ship. It's going to be really great.
The White House is taking a victory lap, telling Americans how the bill will deliver for them, including extending his 2017 tax cuts and enacting his new promises of no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and new tax cuts for seniors.
This bill is the largest tax cut in American history for middle and working class families. Bigger paychecks of $10,000 more in annual take-home pay for families.
That said, the process of getting this bill over the finish line was arduous. In fact, just the night before, the president said he was not 100% sure that a bill would pass on Thursday. And on Friday, senior White House officials told us that in the 24 hours leading up to the bill's passage, the president had numerous meetings and calls, including late-night calls with all factions of the GOP conference. He also used his relationship with lawmakers, which he was building even during his transition period at Mar-a-Lago, with dinner after dinner. Officials told us that those relationships delivered for him at crunch time.
And so we'll be signing with those beautiful planes flying right over our heads.
And on Friday, in addition to signing the bill into law, the president will also celebrate the 4th of July with military families and watch fireworks with them from the South Lawn. He'll also invite to the White House pilots who flew the daring B-2 bombers during a mission last month to target Iran's nuclear facilities. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Today, the Supreme Court agreed to hear 4 new cases next term, including 2 that involve laws that ban transgender athletes from competing in women's and girls' sports. Here's more on that.
The Supreme Court order list for this week grants appeals in 4 cases to be heard in the 2025 term. One of the cases challenges Idaho's Fairness in Women's Sports Act. It's asking whether Title IX and the 14th Amendment block laws that prevent transgender athletes from competing in women's sports. A similar case challenges West Virginia's Save Women's Sports Act. In that case, the Fourth Circuit prohibited the act allowing a biological boy to compete on girls' sports teams in West Virginia. The state of West Virginia is asking the Supreme Court to overturn the ruling. West Virginia Attorney General J.B. McCuskey applauded the Supreme Court for agreeing to hear their appeal. He said in a statement, "It's a great day as female athletes in West Virginia will have their voices heard." The other two cases on the list include a former convict turned Christian who feels called to share the gospel. He's challenging a local ordinance that was used to fine him for allegedly protesting outside of an arena. He's seeking to prevent the ordinance from being used against him again in the future. And a consolidated case involving two separate complaints that ask whether the New Jersey Transit Corporation can be sued in a state other than New Jersey. The High Court declined to hear a case challenging parental consent for people under age 18 who want an abortion.
President Trump spoke by phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin today, just before an expected call with Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the latest on the war in Europe.
President Trump on Thursday holding his sixth phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin says the two discussed the situation around Iran and in the broader Middle East. Putin reportedly stressed the need to resolve all differences in the region using political and diplomatic means. In terms of Ukraine, Trump pushed for a quick end to the fighting in Europe. The Kremlin says it's ready to continue talks regarding humanitarian issues, but added that it will continue pushing forward with its military goals.
To reach the goals it has set, that is the elimination of the well-known root causes that led to the current state of affairs. And Russia will not back down from these goals.
The Kremlin spokesperson added that Trump and Putin did not talk about a possible in-person meeting. Also on Thursday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky seemed to confirm reports that he'll speak with President Trump on Friday.
I hope that maybe tomorrow or in close days, these days, I will speak about it with the President Trump.
Zelensky also announced that Kiev will produce hundreds of thousands of drones with an American company. According to Zelensky, Ukraine signed an agreement with U.S. company Swiftbeat.
The main component is interceptor drones, which have already proven themselves in Ukraine. We have already tested these drones with several companies, and now we have finally signed a very serious contract.
This comes just one day after the U.S. confirmed it's pausing some weapons shipments to Ukraine. Officials say that's to review what the U.S. has stockpiled to make sure America doesn't run low. Meanwhile, in Russia, Russian officials set up a makeshift memorial in the city of Vladivostok for the Russian general Mikhail Gudkov. The deputy head of the Russian Navy was reportedly killed by Ukrainian forces in Kursk. Some people appeared to bring flowers to the memorial in honor of the late general. Gudkov is one of the most senior Russian military officers killed by Ukraine so far. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
And President Trump has just commented on today's call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying they didn't make any progress on Ukraine. Watch.
We had a call. It was a pretty long call. We talked about a lot of things, including Iran. And we also talked about, as you know, the war with Ukraine. And I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy about that. No, I didn't make any progress with him today at all.
A former hostage who is held in the Gaza Strip visited the White House today. This comes amid ongoing talks between Israel and Hamas for a ceasefire. NTD's Jason Perry has the update.
Former hostage Edan Alexander visited the White House on Thursday, where he was expected to meet with President Trump. Alexander was the last living American hostage held in the Gaza Strip, and he was released this past May after 584 days in captivity. Meanwhile, residents in Israel continue to demonstrate and call for the release of the remaining hostages held in the Gaza Strip. One of the protesters said this about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's upcoming trip to the U.S.
If our Prime Minister is traveling to the United States next week, it must only be to announce a ceasefire, end of the war, and the hostages returning.
Meanwhile, the Hamas terrorist group said they are now studying the ceasefire proposal and that they aim to reach an agreement that would have Israeli forces withdraw from the Gaza Strip and end the war. Israeli government spokesman David Minter on Thursday said the negotiations are ongoing.
What I can share with you is that Prime Minister Netanyahu is working to end the campaign in Gaza through the release of the hostages and the defeat of the Hamas terrorist organization as soon as possible.
Hamas also recently warned residents in the Gaza Strip not to cooperate with the newly established aid organization, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF, which is backed by Israel and the U.S. Hamas said that deadly incidents near the aid sites endanger the lives of residents, and Hamas warned that anyone who cooperates with the aid organization would be punished to the maximum extent of the law. The GHF responded, saying the statement from Hamas, quote, confirms what we've known all along. Hamas is losing control. Also on Thursday, residents in the Gaza Strip were seen mourning the loss of their loved ones after Israeli forces reported striking 150 terrorist targets in the past day. Some other residents have sought shelter near the beach.
Life used to be dignified. We lived like human beings with our rights, our normal life, everything provided. Now it is just heat, displacement, tents, and these terrible conditions.
Many of the residents continue to hope for a ceasefire, but for now, the negotiations are still ongoing. Jason Perry, NTD News.